What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smoke, brought to you by FGC. Oh, stupid. But anyways, what's up, Boris?
Hey, buddy. Let's do
That was even
this.
that was even dumber. I don't know. We literally just lost everybody who was listening to this.
I'm just excited about today's episode. I think it's a good one, man.
It is a good one for sure. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Like,
Mhm.
comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. What is our episode about today, Boris?
Today, we're going to go head to head career versus volunteer firefighter. Which path,
Whoa.
which path is right for you? So we'll just start off by saying both Adamo and I were volunteers before this. This isn't some sort of like measuring contest. We love volunteering. We love career, obviously. So we're just going to run through kind of what the differences are, what might be right for you, and yeah, go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You said measuring contest, like measuring what?
Uh, we can talk about that on our Patreon.
Right on, right on. Yeah, so career versus volunteer firefighter, which path is right for you? Boris, like you said, we were both volunteers before we went career. Um, Also, a lot of volunteer firefighters end up becoming career firefighters.
Mhm.
Boris and I, that was our motivation with becoming volunteer firefighters was, to enhance our skills and get a better understanding of what it's like to be a firefighter as well as serve the community. So yeah, so if you're listening to this, if you're trying to become a volunteer firefighter just to give back to your community, that's awesome. If you're becoming a volunteer because you want to go career, that's awesome as well. It's a great thing to have on your resume. And we're just going to kind of talk about the difference between the two and what you can kind of expect and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and I've known people who have gone volunteer and then decided not to go career. That's fine too. If you can figure out what you prefer, if you can do that, the earlier the better. The earlier you can figure out what you prefer, the better it is for you down the line. So, yeah, Adamo, let's jump into the differences between the two roles here. So, what would you say the biggest differences are between career firefighter and volunteer firefighter off the bat?
Well, I would say career, you're paid.
Yeah, which is
um,
nice.
you collect a salary, benefits, pension. It's obviously full time, right? Now, when we say full time, that's based off of a typical, say 36 to 48-hour work week, depending on the department. Some departments do 24-hour shifts, some departments do, 2 days, 2 nights, four off. Really kind of depends, but basically you're full time in the sense that you have a full time paid salary, and you're working roughly those types of hours, right? Full time, obviously, very highly competitive to get into. I
Mhm.
saw, I'll see if I can find it, but I saw a stat where it's like just in Canada alone, 15,000 people every year on average apply to become firefighters
Mm.
uh, in this country, and the percentage was like, I think it was like only 6 or 7% of people who apply in that year actually get the job.
Right. I can see it, man.
So
It is super competitive. Like I think we talked about it in one of our old episodes about like when you and I applied, there was like 1,100 applicants and they hired 15 of us,
yeah,
right? At the time. So it is super competitive. If you are getting into firefighting to be career, just be ready for that. That's why you might want to go volunteer first and just make sure it's right for you. Get all those skills, like you said, Adamo, and then go from there, right?
yeah. It also looks really good on the resume too. If you've been a volunteer firefighter for a while, it just shows that you have a better understanding of the fire service. You've committed a lot of your time towards the fire service, and all that kind of stuff. So you'd find, I would say, on average, it's mostly volunteer firefighters getting hired into career as opposed to somebody who has zero fire experience getting hired into career. Would you say the same, Boris?
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense, right? You're going to hire somebody who's already done the job somewhere else, essentially, right? Because the only difference in terms of calls and the stuff that you do between volunteer and career is you probably just do more of it in a career department, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially it. The job's still the same. You still go to same bad calls. You still go to same good calls, but you just go to more of them in career. So yeah, it definitely helps. And when we talk about volunteer firefighting, what we mean is, paid on call. Uh, we talk about wildland firefighting, which isn't necessarily volunteer, but it's definitely seasonal, right?
Yeah.
We talk about live-in programs. There's all kinds of volunteer firefighting you could do. You can do like industrial volunteer firefighting as well, I believe. So
Yep.
uh, when we talk about volunteer firefighting in this episode, just so you guys know, we're talking about anything that's essentially not full-time career.
Yeah. I would say wildland is almost its own thing as opposed to volunteer career. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it is pretty different.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll do an episode on wildland firefighting at some point as well. I think that'd be a good one for people.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, so and another thing too is like fire departments are most of the time they're part of the union, right? They're unionized. There's some places in the states where they aren't. They aren't part of a union, but
Mm.
um, I think for the most part, majority of departments are in the IAFF union.
Yeah, and obviously that brings its own dynamic to the forefront. What would you say is then the difference between career and volunteer? What's volunteer then, in a sense?
Yeah, so typically it's unpaid, right? Or it could be paid on call, right? So it's just like a pretty small stipend, right?
Yeah, were you
Paid
getting
on call
anything?
is when I was in I think the in the time that I was there, I think I made a total of like maybe like 700 or 800 bucks
And
in over a year,
right, right.
right? So it's really, you know, paid on call is you're not making a career out of it, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's essentially why that department is volunteers because there's not enough calls to warrant for a career department, right?
Typically, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Typically, yeah. So I mean, you obviously there's not a whole lot of calls to go to, and the ones you go to, like you said, Adamo, you get paid something small. Like I know for my volunteer department, I think it's something like $15 a call, and you might catch, two, three of those a month, maybe, right?
Yeah, I think it was pretty similar with where I was as well. And a lot of the people there, there was obviously like a very clear grouping, right? Like there's two groups. There's the people who went there because they knew they wanted to go career and they were kind of using this as a stepping stone. But there was also a lot of people who just lived in the community, who just wanted to be part of the community. They just wanted to be a volunteer firefighter on their days off of their regular career.
Hmm.
So if you are applying to a volunteer fire department, you'll probably notice that, right? I think that's pretty common. You're going to have people who just kind of wanted to get involved in the community, give back a bit, and they like their current job. They have no interest in going career, and then you're going to have the people who are wanting to go career, and they're doing this to gain that extra um, insight into the fire service.
Yeah, and speaking of that, what are some qualifications in training that if you are looking to get into career, for example, what are you going to have? What are you going to need for career as opposed to having for your volunteer department?
Yeah, so it really does depend on the department that you're applying to, and you should do your research and look at the department that you plan to apply to and make sure you have the qualifications that are required of you in order to even submit your application. Otherwise, it's just going to end up in the garbage, right? But
Hmm.
most of the time, they're going to require you to have that NFPA 1001, right? So that firefighter level 1 and 2 from an accredited training academy, right?
Hmm.
Some sort of medical responder license, right? Whether it's your EMR, your FR, but some sort of higher level of first aid, right?
Yeah.
And again, it depends on the department, right? A lot of departments are going to require you to also have a higher level of driving license, right? So, here in BC, it's called Class 3, which allows you to essentially drive tandem axle vehicles. It's I'm not too sure what they call it in the States, but so you're probably going to want those are going to be like the three main things that they're definitely going to want to see, right? And
Hmm.
as well added on to that, right? Like you're going to have to pass physical tests, right? Like fitness tests, all that kind of stuff, right? So you're also going to want a high level of physical fitness.
Yeah, like you said, people in a volunteer department are sometimes from the community. So, they could be 50, 60 years old, sometimes 70 years old even. The physical fitness aspect is not as stringent. It's just people from the community helping out when there is an incident, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Volunteer also, you might not need that, NFPA 1001. You may not need your EMT or your EMR, whatever, country or state you're in. Um, it often trains in-house, right? A lot of volunteer departments will actually just train you on their basic stuff that they need you to be competent on
yeah,
within the department. And yeah, the bar is definitely a lot lower in volunteer departments as far as the qualifications go. But I would say the bar for performance is still on
still pretty
par.
high.
Yeah, it's on
Yeah,
par with career, right? Like the calls, like we said before, are the same. So like you are expected to perform at your best at a CPR call, whether that's a career department or volunteer, right?
exactly. Yeah, you're still held to that higher standard, right?
Mhm.
And like hats off to people who just want to stay volunteer because they just want to give back to their community. I mean, there is a lot of responsibility, and you are held to that higher standard, especially within your community too, because a lot of people in the community know you and they know that you're a member of the fire department there as well, right?
Totally. And, I've spoken about this with some of the firefighters now at our career department. They've asked me because I used to be an officer down in a volunteer department. Obviously, it's a lot different than being an officer in a career department, officers at a career department, are a lot more seasoned, experienced, knowledgeable in
Hmm.
just by call volume and time in, right? It comes with the job. But when people would ask me about it, I would say the same thing, be like, look, the job is still the same. You're supposed to take care of your crew, you're supposed to take care of the community, and you're supposed to be professional on calls just for way less money, if no money at all, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
uh
exactly.
definitely hats off to volunteers who just do that full time, essentially without aspirations for career.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Maybe why don't we cover some like lifestyle and some time commitment stuff when it comes to, shift work and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so if you are looking to get into firefighting, definitely we recommend going the volunteer route first and seeing what the time commitment is, right? Seeing what kind of mental and emotional load the job takes on you. Hopefully, you're going to be doing some night shifts or paid on call. You're going to go on some calls during the night, so you're going to see what that kind of has effect on you, the no sleep, how it affects your family, how it affects your regular job and how you work during the day, right?
Hmm.
uh
Absolutely.
I'd say I don't know how you feel about that, Adamo, but I'd say like that's why volunteering is so good to do first, because then you see all the negatives of firefighting early on too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like typically you're going to have like a pager. I know some volunteer departments have like an app. So like when a call comes in, your phone buzzes, but I think most volunteer departments are still on the pager system. So, you'll be at home and there might be a requirement for you as well to be like, hey, okay, so, you're on this shift and you need to be at home in the community for, from Friday to Sunday, one week in a month
Hmm.
kind of thing, right? And you're going to be at home and your pager's going to go off at like 2 in the morning, right? Or it could be during the week and your pager goes off at 2 in the morning and you have to work the next day, right? So it does definitely give you like a good um, glimpse into some of the sleep deprivation stuff that you could be dealing with as a career firefighter.
Yeah, and also you can see how it affects your family as well, right? If your spouse just hates you waking up to a pager, then maybe the volunteer aspect is not for you, or your commitment to that volunteer department is not for you, right? For
Yeah,
long term. If they don't like you being away from home for 24 hours, 36, 48, whatever, then maybe career's not right for you, right? So you can kind of gauge from your family as well which path you want to take, essentially.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then like when it comes to like pay and benefits, career progression, right? Like all that kind of stuff. Obviously, if you're a first class firefighter in a career department, you're looking at, anywhere from 100 to $120,000 a year as your salary for a first class firefighter, right? So, I mean, if you get on as a volunteer firefighter and your regular job pays you much more than that, well, you might just want to stay volunteer then,
Yeah,
right? Just depending on what your motivations are in life.
totally. And it depends, obviously, like when we say 100,000, that's like Canadian dollars in most Canadian provinces, right? But like
Yeah.
if you're, in southern US, your salary might be 50, 60,000 US potentially, depending on your qualifications. So make sure you always check all these qualifications, salaries. That's why we always harp on knowing the department you're applying to, right?
Yeah.
Uh, because you need to know how much money you would be making, what the commitment is away from home, what the benefits are, what qualifications you need. You don't want to be jumping into volunteer or career without knowing the department first, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, like, career, like there's promotions involved, right? Like you can, depending on where you are, some departments require you to be on for like 7 or 8 years, and then you can apply to a competition of becoming an officer. Other departments do it based off seniority, right? But you probably will at some point in your career kind of move up the ladder a little bit. Uh, and that can happen with volunteering too, though, right? Like you can be the most senior volunteer there, and your next step might be for you to become a lieutenant or a captain of that career department, right?
Of the volunteer department, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Usually the chief positions are full time in volunteer departments, so you're not getting those unless you actively are seeking that down the line, right? Um,
Yeah.
so like you said, Adama, way more career opportunities in a career department or more uh, promotional opportunities. You can go into fire investigations, you can go into fire prevention. There's all kinds of different things, right? Specialties, which usually you don't really have in a volunteer department.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think most volunteer departments, just because they're so small, you're gonna you're probably gonna be limited on what kind of volunteer career you can have, if that makes
Mhm.
sense, right? Like for example, like Boris is a hazmat guy, right? So a volunteer department, they're not going to have their own separate hazmat hall, right? They're kind
Mhm.
of going to be trained up on everything.
Yeah, jack of all trades. You're going to be doing everything
Yeah.
down there. Uh, and that's the kind of nice, that's what I love about career now is like dedicated hazmat team, right? Like if anything happens in the city that we're in, we get called in to do that, which is cool. So like if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, like a demo, you're heavy rescue. So like if there's a crash somewhere or a vehicle MVI extrication needed, you get sent in, right? So if that's
Yeah.
what you're kind of looking for in the firefighting spectrum of career and volunteer, then maybe career is a better choice for you, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Again, like verify with the department you're applying to because some career departments are also jack of all trades, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think it really depends on just the size of the department, right?
Totally. So yeah, you guys really do need to do your research, right? It's huge. We've been harping on it for several episodes now. So, okay. What about the community and just the brotherhood aspect of career versus volunteer?
Versus volunteer. Yeah, when I was a volunteer, I did find the culture was pretty similar
Hmm.
to career, especially with those of us who knew we wanted to go down that career path. We had that kind of similar culture as a career department would have.
Hmm.
Um, but I would say it's a bit more relaxed, right? In the sense of, if you're a junior guy or a probationer, it might not be as intense as being a probationer at a career hall, right?
Hmm.
But that camaraderie, I think it's there on both sides. For at least that was my kind of experience when I was a volunteer and then going into career. We all had that camaraderie, right? That brotherhood, sisterhood kind of family feel, right? And of course, the people who are just wanting to be volunteers, they have their own careers. Like you said, Boris, they might be like 50, 60, 70 years old. It was a bit different for them, right? Like it wasn't as regimented. They didn't really see the point in all that, right?
Mhm.
So you will have it will be a little bit different, I guess, when it comes to the volunteer side. But there's also still that kind of brotherhood, sisterhood mentality within that volunteer world.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that if you can find one thing that binds volunteer and career together, it's that community
Yeah.
sense of a family, which is if that's what you're looking for and that's the only thing you're looking for, then maybe volunteering is just a route for you, right? Because yeah, that's one thing I think both sides are sharing quite a bit in common.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. For sure. Uh, and then the impacts too of like serving your own town versus joining like a larger like urban department, right?
Mhm.
If you're a volunteer in a small town, chances are you probably know quite a few people in that town. I would assume um, there could be a significant impact of you having to respond to an address that and the people in that house who need help, and you might know them really well, right? So that could also have a bit of an impact on you when it comes to maybe some emotional trauma and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. If that is something that bothers you and going to somebody that you might know, going to a different department altogether, somewhere away from you, that's an hour commute, let's say, might be the better choice, right? So all these factors, take them in, look at the departments, and try to decide what's good for you because there are some very significant differences between volunteer and career.
Yeah,
But
yeah, absolutely.
I got to say, like, I don't regret at all going volunteer and then going career. It's been some of the best choices I've made in my life, I'd say.
Dude, same here. And some of the best memories I have in my life are from when I was a volunteer as well. Some of the friends that I made, lifelong friends, a lot of like-minded people, some great stories, some really fun times as a volunteer.
Mm,
When you're a volunteer, like, because everything's so new to you, like every call you go on is so exciting, right? And you're learning, but you're learning with everyone else, right? Everyone else is learning with you, and it's really cool. Like you make a lot of really good friends, and like I said, like lifelong friend. Like I know for a fact, Boris, you still keep in touch with people from your volunteer hall, and
mm.
as do I, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. That lifelong friendship is definitely going to stay there no matter which way you go. So, yeah, lots of good memories, lots of fuck ups.
yeah, lots of rolling with the punches, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's good stuff.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so like these are just kind of some things that we wanted to discuss and go over when it comes to just the difference between volunteer and career. Um, we highly recommend if you're somebody who wants to go career, try and get in as a volunteer somewhere. Depending on where you live, it might be challenging, but there are also work experience programs. I know we have them in Canada. I would assume they probably have some in the States, maybe not. I'm not too sure. Um, but those are a really good way of being immersed in that culture and that fire service as well.
Yeah, I think US is about 75 to 80% volunteer. So lots of
Wow.
opportunities. Yeah, it's huge. They actually have obviously a huge percentage of people who do it for almost no money, right?
Yeah.
Really hats off to those guys. So yeah, look into your communities and see how you can support. And I know, like for example, here in Australia, there's the CFA, which is the County Fire Authority, which is the same thing, volunteer on the side, outside of municipal departments. So definitely lots of opportunities, no matter where you go. You just have to look for them, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And in one of our episodes, previous episodes, we interviewed one of the chiefs from one of the work experience programs. I think it was Big White, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Big.
Yeah. So if you guys want to learn more about what a work experience program is, just go through our podcast episodes. You'll find one. I think it's called uh, Big
Chief
White
Joe.
Work Experience or something like
Yeah.
that.
Or I think it's special guest Chief Foster, Chief Josh Foster. Might be.
Yeah. Yeah. So have a listen to that one if you want to learn more about what a work experience program is, what it entails, the requirements. Yeah, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So we have just created our Patreon program and it's online. We'll put a link in the description of this episode. It's got all our freebies on there. So it's got resume templates, the interview checklist,
The competitive edge checklist.
Yeah, competitive edge checklist.
And we're also going to be diving into more in-depth interview episodes and hiring process stuff. And we're going to be posting it on there. It really does help us out because then we're able to pay Francesco for producing this podcast. If it wasn't for him, we'd be hooped.
You guys missed the part where we were just trying to turn this microphone on before this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we wouldn't be anywhere without him. So we'd like to start paying him a lot more.
And it's also going to be a way for us to just upgrade to better audio equipment, better cameras, better lighting, and all that kind of stuff to bring you guys a better experience with this podcast.
Yeah, and that was your idea actually, Damo, with the whole going over every interview question kind of in depth and really getting into the interview panel stuff.
Yeah, we'll be going into that in really great detail, really breaking apart the questions and just talking about like what they're actually asking in these questions, right? And yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of info, a lot of really, really good info.
And if it's not, let us know. We also have a chat group in there as well on Patreon.
That's right.
So if there's, guests you want us to see, bring on, or if there's questions you want us to ask or talk about on the podcast, you're more than welcome to ask us on there.
Yeah, for sure. And like when it comes to those behavioral / situational type questions, we can break down a question and talk about it for probably half an hour.
Yeah.
Right. Just one question.
Easily.
So there's going to be a lot of really good info on that. And like we said, it's going to really help support the podcast so we can upgrade better equipment and also keep Francesco around so that way there is a podcast.
Chaining him down to the table would be too cruel.
Yeah. Right on.
Thanks, guys, for listening, and hopefully that helps you making your choice later down the line.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys. Take care.